All right, let's go ahead and jump in. Happy town hall. We're June town hall. I almost said Thursday town hall. For those of you who I've not met, I'm Maggie, the community product manager from DataHub. Super excited to have everybody here and just get you caught up on what we've had going on over the past month or so. Right, let me share my screen. I'm also going to get the transcript going. Just in case that's helpful for folks. So a bunch for us to cover today. As always, we come in with a jam-packed agenda. So we'll do some community and roadmap updates, project updates from Shirshanka. We have some really exciting updates on our DBT integration, also some CSV ingestion support. And then we're also bringing back DataHub 201. So this time we're going to do a deep dive into our glossary terms. So without further ado, I actually think we might be a little bit low on this one. I updated it yesterday and we've already had a bunch more people join, but we're just shy of 3,700 Slack members in our community. This is actually just in the past month, the biggest growth month we've seen all time ever. Nearly 400 people have joined us, which is just really, really, really exciting. We have still around 800, 900 weekly active users, still over 10,000 messages being exchanged within our Slack community. So for those of you who are maybe not in the Slack community or are new to it, really the takeaway here is it's a super vibrant and very active community. We have folks coming in from literally all corners of the world to troubleshoot, help one another, and just kind of talk data shop. So very exciting to see a very big growth month for us in June. The other thing that we're starting to look at is our support volume and just kind of keeping an eye on what's going on there. So one thing we look at is how many pull requests we have coming in per week, as well as the number of issues. And over the past four weeks, we're seeing around 40 PRs opened on a weekly basis. And that's actually consistent with the period prior to that. So we're consistently seeing that coming in. And we'll do a deep dive, or we'll do a little closer look to see who's actually contributing those. But really all that is to say, pretty high volume of work coming through, and keeping the core DataHub team very busy with our review process. We're also still seeing consistently around 500 or so, actually between like 500 or 600 support messages coming into our core channels. The majority of these do tend to be in our troubleshoot and ingestion channels. And really this is just kind of a call for folks in the community. If you're able to help, like kind of jump in, help people, route them to docs or help them kind of debug issues that you've already, kind of resolved on your own. The more support we get from the community, the more that we can focus on moving through those PRs and really making sure that the project is moving forward. So like I said, just a ton of really great activity happening there, and we're seeing just consistent throughput on both the code contribution side and then also the support side as well. So call for contributions. Code contributions are not the only way that folks can contribute to our project. So in the next few weeks, I'm going to be teaming up with Elizabeth Cohen who's on my team, and we're going to start putting together kind of like a program or a little bit more structure around how we can have folks contribute to the DataHub blog. So if you are excited about DataHub, if you're looking for ways to contribute that are not maybe code-based, if you enjoy writing, or maybe you actually want to challenge yourself to write a little bit more, we would love to feature you on our blog post. Right now we have over 400 subscribers to the blog itself, and we'll also be sure to blast it out in the Slack community and our newsletter subscribers. So it's a really great way to get, a little bit of extra exposure out for folks as well. And we're also going to be offering some compensation to just really, show appreciation for the time. So topics are going to be anything from adopting DataHub, how did you go about it, what was that like navigating within your organization, but then also just kind of talking, not surprisingly, a little bit at more of a meta level about modern approaches to data governance, or how you or your team or how the industry is starting to approach data governance and metadata management, data mesh, et cetera. And then also, if you want to go kind of more on the technical or the deep dive side of things, you're more than welcome to do that. You could talk about extending or customizing DataHub for own use cases. So tons of options there. And like I said, Elizabeth and I will be sharing out more details in the coming weeks. The other thing to keep an eye on is our in our quarterly roadmap, we'll continue to have this area where we are looking for community support. I need to update this still for Q3, but I am going to be starting to look through our feature request portal and just really try to highlight areas where it would be maybe a good intro or kind of like a bite-sized contribution for folks, and just really highlighting some of those. And we're also going to be starting to route, so within our Slack instance, there's 2 ways that you can kind of keep an eye on contributing within the contribute channel, of course. We're going to be we're going to start applying good first issue labels to GitHub issues, and then highlighting those so we can kind of point people in that direction within the GitHub realm. And then the other thing that we just rolled out is this program called Question of the Week. And really it's just a way for the core DataHub team to spark up conversations with the community, understand how things are going, how are you using current features, what are you looking for, et cetera. And so we'll have a new question and chatter every week. And of course, we will send out swag to a random winner, or sorry, a random respondent. So if you are interested in one of these lovely DataHub sweaters, that's where you would get one. And then last but not least, we're going to be sending out a survey today. Actually, you know what? I'll put a pin in that for a second. We'll talk about that in a moment. All right, community shout outs. This is my absolute favorite part of Town Hall. We have had, for those of you who are in the community and you're in Slack, I guarantee you've seen XL jump in and help out. XL is, I was going through the Slack messages today. I think he jumped in on like literally over 100 threads in the last month to provide some support. Everything from, just getting kind of like system requirements set up, sending out links to docs, but then also kind of talking about the core components of the DataHub project. XL, you're consistently going above and beyond, and we really, really appreciate you there. And that is not all. We have, and again, this is, if I missed you, I'm so sorry. This was just a quick run through of what I was able to pull together, but just some really wonderful humans that are helping us out and providing that community support so that the core DataHub team can, focus on code review, building out new features, and kind of the overall health of the project. So truly and deeply appreciate all of you for providing that support. The other thing we like to celebrate is when folks are driving DataHub adoption within their organization. So within the past month, we had N26 officially adopt DataHub as their metadata platform. So massive thanks to Rodolfo and Rodrigo. Wonderful to work with you guys, and congrats to your team. Really appreciate the hard work there. And then we also have the Digital Turbine team, so the data engineering team from there officially adopted. And one thing to call out, like these are, by adding these adopters to our site and kind of providing the broader community with visibility of who has adopted DataHub, we actually get a lot of extra traffic of folks coming in and saying, I saw that XYZ company who's in a similar industry or a similar growth stage, or maybe I know that they have a similar tech stack. I saw that they adopted DataHub, so I wanted to learn about it. So this is just a really powerful way for us to continue to inspire growth, attract new folks into the community. So if you and your team have adopted DataHub and you would like to be featured on our website, please feel free to DM me, and we'd love to celebrate that. I'm almost done, I promise. I know this is a lot of talking from me up front. For Q2, let's take a peek at what we have going on so far. So we rolled out, again, this is just our public roadmap, so all of this is available for anyone to take a look at. So in this quarter, we have completed some pretty big improvements to our user and group management, so you can now manage your users via the UI. We also rolled out a Java Kafka emitter, so just making it easier and easier for folks to programmatically interact with DataHub. We also have our business glossary improvements, and we'll get into that. You'll see some of those highlights that Chris will walk through a little bit later. And then currently in progress, we have Gabe and I are teaming up on building out a new getting started tutorial. So really the effort there is to just make it easier for folks to come in and start working with DataHub really quickly. Kind of have some representative examples of what it looks like to ingest metadata, manipulate that metadata, and kind of get an understanding of what the tool does. We also have someone in the community driving our work to remove Confluent schema registry as a hard requirement. There's a draft PR out there. We're hoping to move that one through pretty quickly. And then from a design and discovery standpoint for collaboration has just been a widely requested feature from the community, but it's also a very nebulous space. It can mean a lot of things. It can be represented by a lot of different features or workflows. And so instead of just kind of blindly pushing out some features, we're actually taking the time to do some research. And so we'll actually be sending out a survey later on today through Slack. And so we'd love feedback in terms of kind of the burning problems that would be addressed by this, how it fits into your tech workflow, or your other tools and workflows, and that'll inform future development work. We do have a couple of things from our Q2 roadmap that we were not able to pick up. So this is around our lineage visualization enhancements and also just kind of a refresh on some of our data set pages. We will keep those on our roadmap, and I'm putting together our Q3 roadmap as we speak, and I will be announcing that within the next couple of weeks. We'll also have like a recorded walkthrough, so all of this will be available and as transparent as possible for you folks. That's it from me. Shirshanka, I'm going to hand it over to you.
So we had a lot of stuff happen in May. The usual, 200 plus PRs were merged in, and we have a lot of new contributors this time compared to the last month. So that's great to see. More than almost 20 new contributors, a total of almost 50. I think hopefully we got it all right, and you can see yourself there. The things I'm really excited about, and we'll talk about some of these today, are a bunch of product improvements. We're now surfacing DBT test outcomes. We're merging DBT and warehouse nodes to give you a consolidated view. You're able to now manage related glossary terms via the UI as well. And I think Chris will go into some of that. A lot of improvements to user invitations. So you're getting much easier for you to onboard people onto DataHub. And finally, you are now able to create and revoke access tokens via the UI. This was a common requirement. No one wants access tokens to be floating around and not be revocable. So I think that was a pretty welcome security addition. On the metadata integration side, we now finally support CSV imports for metadata, and Aditya will be walking us through what we've done. Snowflake, we have improvements to the ingestion connector that allow you to profile data only if it has changed within the recent period. That allows you to keep your profiling costs low and only focus on the most relevant tables. And we have a bunch of new sources: Iceberg, Vertica, SAP HANA, and also SAP HANA, and also Delta Lake that I'll be talking about in a bit. And finally, on the Dev Experience Plus platform, Maggie already talked about this. We have finally got the Java Kafka emitter. So if you are in an ecosystem where you don't want to be susceptible to the DataHub service being up or deal with the round trip to the DataHub API, you can just emit your metadata to Kafka directly. So that's pretty much all of the highlights. There's obviously a lot more that happened, and I would highly encourage you looking through the release notes and the changelog if you're interested in more details of everything that's changed. One big thing that happened was, and this is something Chris, I think, hinted at last time, right, is we finally got the lineage page looking much more integrated with the impact analysis capability. So when you click on lineage now, you automatically get both downstream and upstream tabular views, but we've kind of unified tabular views to basically be search views, right? So anytime you're looking up or down the lineage graph, you're able to filter down by degree of dependencies, types of entities, and things like that. And of course, that helpful hamburger on the right that allows you to download your final filtered down results so that you can do something interesting with it. So that's, I think, rolled out to all data set entities and probably to the pipelines and tasks as well, right, Chris? So it's a pretty easy way for you to get a sense of downstream and upstream lineage in a much more tabular search kind of abstraction, I would say. Chris, anything to add there?
Nothing for me. That was good. Thanks, Shirshanka.
Okay, cool. All right. So next thing we want to talk about is just give you guys an update on how Spark integration has been going so far and with the whole Spark ecosystem. I just talked at Data and AI Summit yesterday, and it was a pretty well-attended talk. And I think Maggie will send out recordings once they're published. And one of the things we were really excited to talk about was kind of the evolution of DataHub's integration with the Spark ecosystem. So some of you might be already familiar with this, but I'll just give a quick refresher. The way we integrate with Spark is a few different ways. One is if you're running Spark jobs, you can drop in the DataHub Spark listener, which is available as a jar from the Maven repository. And all you have to do is point it to the DataHub REST server. And every time a Spark job runs, it's going to observe what happened and emit both DAG level lineage, which is the pipeline, as well as the tasks that ran within it, as well as dataset to job to dataset lineage. So this has been there for a while, but it's getting more and more mature, and a lot of people are starting to use it. This is what it looks like when you actually run one of these. You end up finding a pipeline in your DataHub, and then when you go click on it, you can see the tasks that are within it. And then when you look at the lineage for the task itself, you can see what tables it read and what tables or folders it wrote to. There's obviously some work that we are continuing to do in terms of, you might have noticed on the Airflow side, we are now starting to capture run level execution details and run level lineage. So that will come to the Spark emitter as well very soon. And that will allow you to even look at lineage over time. Also, you might be familiar that we allow you to integrate with Databricks over the Hive interface. So if you're running Databricks, all you have to do is point DataHub to the Databricks workspace URL. You add a few additional, magic incantations to the config, and you're ready to go in terms of connecting up to Databricks and getting all the schemas out. Some recent fixes were done actually to pull out nested structs correctly. So you'll see some improvements there in terms of our ability to pull out table schemas. And just yesterday we announced, and this is the first time we're announcing the town hall, integration with Delta Lake. And Spark or Databricks actually open sourced the Delta Lake engine yesterday. So it's now, I guess, called Delta Lake 2.0. But really what this allows people to do is whether they're on Databricks or not, they're able to use Delta Lake as an open data lake table format. And that's cool because that means you are not locked into Databricks, I guess, as a vendor when you're deciding where to run your Spark workload. So I think we'll see what the industry does with it. It'll be interesting to see how Delta Lake takes off outside compared to, Iceberg and Hoodie. And as you know, we already support those other data lake formats. So it was just natural for us to also build integration with Delta Lake. And I'm very excited that we now have an integration with it. All you have to do is point us to the top level folder under which all your Delta tables live. And DataHub will automatically scan those folders and extract out the Delta tables and the schemas associated with them. So this is now available for you to try out. Support status is incubating. We're still making some, the basic functionality is working. We're making some improvements to it, and I'll talk about that in just a bit. Here's what an actual Delta table looks like when you ingest it using this connector. So Maggie, you'll be happy to see that pet profiles from Longtail Companions is now a Delta Lake table.
Yay!
And it looks pretty much similar to the Snowflake table, other than the fact
just
that
as we expected. That's great.
Yeah, not much to see here, and that's actually good, other than the logo change. So that's pet profiles on Delta Lake. That's what it looks like if you were to use Databricks as your lakehouse or Delta Lake as your lakehouse. Moving forward, this is basically a way to think about how to integrate with the Spark ecosystem. You've got jobs that are running on Spark, and those are emitting push-based emitting pipeline DAG definitions, as well as lineage between data sets and jobs. And then if you've got Databricks Hive or just Spark Hive, I guess, you can get schemas out from it. And with the new addition with Delta Lake, you're also able to get, we're working on this actually, you're able to get schemas, but then you'll soon also be able to get statistics as well as the transaction log. And that I think is super cool, because now you'll be able to literally look at how this data set evolved over time and what were the changes made to it, get schema history and all of that stuff coming straight from the Delta Lake log. Another thing that Databricks announced yesterday or day before yesterday was their Unity catalog. And so that's another catalog solution that's available inside the Databricks ecosystem for Databricks customers. And that's on our roadmap to integrate with in the next quarter. So that would basically round out our integration with the Spark ecosystem pretty nicely. So that's a Spark integration update. And I'll now hand it over to Tamash to talk about some cool improvements we've made to making sure that ingestion recipes are not dead on arrival.
Yeah, so let me share my screen so I just quickly show you. I guess all of you who edited some recipe in DataHub, you had this experience, you had some kind of, you opened your favorite YAML editor and you started to write in the recipe, and then in the end you tried to run it, and then usually what happened, actually, not this one, shoot, I'm sorry. Just give me a sec. Okay. Anyway, so it seems like my local is broken. So anyway, so usually what happened, you could just get some error that, hey, there were fields which are extra fields and you need to fix it. And you might wonder that, hey, there should be some better way to edit this. And it would be great if you could use your favorite editor like VS Code or IntelliJ editing these recipes. And from now on, it's basically possible. So any editor, what you have, and have some kind of YAML support, and also schema validation, and it supports like working with schemastore.org. Then the only thing you need to do to turn your editor to a DataHub recipe editor is just adding dhub.yaml to the name of your recipe file, and then just open the recipe with your favorite editor. And what you can see here in the bottom right corner, it's automatically will pick up the schema from the internet. So based on your extension, and immediately you can see, hey, there is some problem with these two fields. And you can use the same way, like with your control space to, just to fix these issues. Also, you might not know what schema pattern is, and previously you had to go back and forth on the DataHub documentation, but now you can get everything in the editor. So I think it's much more easier to editing these recipes and changing it or adding any new field. As you can see, it's quite easy. And yeah. And basically, that's it. So you just name your recipe as dhub.yaml or something like dhub.yaml, open your favorite editor, and it just works magically.
Thanks, Tamash. All right, let's move on to the
quick call out for Tamash. When we were building this out, one of the things we were definitely thinking about was people will probably want to say, can I connect it to a specific version of the library? And that's exactly what I'm seeing in the chat. So we hear you. That's coming next, being able to basically validate the version of the schema against a specific, the ingestion recipe against a specific version. We actually have all of the metadata we need for this We just have to figure out exactly how to publish it and make sure that the recipe is pulling it down correctly. The extension is pulling it down correctly. So stay tuned. And if you have ideas for how to do it, or you've done something like this before, obviously all of this is backed by JSON schema. Definitely DM us and we can actually figure out how to do this. All right, over to you, Maggie.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to bounce it right back to you guys. So Gabe, I think we're going to start with you first. So let's move over to some recent improvements to our DBT integration.
And I can share my screen. All right. So Shirshanka and I are very excited to talk about some improvements that we've made to the DBT integration with DataHub. And just to set the context, DBT, as many of you folks know, is the tool that allows you to write transformations on your data inside of a data warehouse. However, DBT is not the one storing the data itself. You'll be running DBT on something like Snowflake, BigQuery, Postgres, etc., where the data is stored. So to get your metadata into DataHub from DBT, you need to run a recipe that integrates both ingest DBT metadata to get things like lineage, documentation, DBT meta tags, and then also you'll want to run ingestion from your source system to understand things like data profiles, data usage, etc. Now the downside of doing both of these ingestions historically has been that we've created independent dataset entities for the DBT nodes and the warehouse nodes. So this comes up in a couple cases. In search, you would see these duplicate nodes from data warehouse, the data warehouse table, and the DBT table coming up in search. You also see a more expanded lineage graph where you see lineage between the data warehouse nodes and the DBT nodes themselves. And finally, you'd also see independent entity pages. So these DBT nodes and warehouse nodes would have their own entity pages where you'd see the metadata from some of them, or some of the metadata on the DBT page and some of the metadata on the data warehouse page. Now, what we heard when we got feedback from the community is that people generally thought of these as the same thing. So the DBT node and the warehouse node were really two sides of the same coin of the same fundamental entity. We listened to your feedback and we decided to make an improvement that really addressed these concerns. And this is our solution. Essentially, we're taking, you can see here, this is the DBT node on the left and the warehouse node on the right. And we thought, if these are just, if you view these as the same thing, let's bring them together. And you can see that once we brought them together, they're just as happy as these two primates. So after, we have merged entity pages, merged search results, merged lineage, and we really get that joy that you saw of those two primates hugging. Of course, it would not be a DataHub town hall without a live demo. So let's cut to that, and I can show you what this looks like in action. So going to my local DataHub, I've loaded in the Jappelshop DBT project with being run on BigQuery. And I can show you how exploring this metadata will look in this merged world. So if I type in customers and search for that, instead of seeing distinct results, I'll see those combined results. So I can see here is a DBT and BigQuery node of customers, customer source, etc. And instead of seeing duplicate search results, I'm just seeing one for each. In addition, I want to call out that we still preserve the filters that you had before. So if you just want to search for DBT nodes or just want to search for BigQuery nodes, you'll still be able to discover these entities with either filter. So you don't have to worry about only searching for one type of filter. In addition, going to the entity page, you can see that this entity page is showing metadata merged from both the DBT node and the BigQuery. So you get the best of both worlds. Here in the schema, you can see schema descriptions that are coming from DBT and also usage information that's coming from BigQuery. Similarly, going through the various tabs, we're able to pull in and merge the metadata from both BigQuery and DBT. So I'm getting view definitions from DBT, properties from DBT, but also things like queries and stats that are coming from BigQuery. Finally, jumping into lineage, you get to see that merged lineage view I was discussing. So here, when I look at the lineage between various entities, I no longer see duplicate nodes. Instead, I see merged nodes. And one thing I want to call out is you can see here, this is an ephemeral DBT node. And since it doesn't actually have any backing in BigQuery, you're not going to see that BigQuery sibling because there is no equivalent BigQuery. So it's able to understand some nodes are both persistent to DBT and BigQuery, while others only exist in the BigQuery world. Or sorry, some only exist in the DBT world. So hopefully these changes make it much easier for you to both discover your data sets and then also once you've discovered them, understand what's going on as we pull that metadata together. So I just wanted to briefly talk about how this works under the hood. So we have these various different pages, search, the entity view, and lineage, and they're all presenting these with this concept of a merged entity to you. And to make this happen, we've created the new aspect on entities called siblings. And this lets an entity say and declare that it has another sibling entity that exists inside of our metadata graph. It also lets us annotate which is the primary sibling for breaking ties between metadata and which is the secondary. So on the metadata side, we're still keeping your BigQuery dataset and the DBT dataset as distinct concepts. But we present a merged view that the various search, entity view, and lineage pages are able to pull from. And so the end user experiences them as a combined object. In terms of next steps, there's a few things that we want to continue improving when it comes to merging the DBT and warehouse nodes. So one is we haven't completed the visual merging. There's a few places where you'll still see them as distinct objects, and that's an autocomplete. And also the browse cards are still showing individual objects. So you'll still see these BigQuery and DBT nodes in browse. We also want a way to sort of peel back this merged entity view, that layer that I showed in the previous slide, and let people access the distinct nodes as well. So this way you can still go to the DBT page and see it without the merged or with the merged. This is something that we plan on adding shortly. And then finally, we also want to explore how we can use the siblings metadata pattern for other types of relationships. So as I showed you in the previous slide, we have this concept of associating entities together and then presenting a view of them being combined. And this isn't necessarily a DBT specific concept. We see this being valuable in other areas as well. For example, if you've ingested multiple data sets or entities for something that you still view as a similar concept in other patterns. So maybe sharded data sets or data sets that one reference was brought in from one source and one reference was brought in from another source. And although the references were slightly different, maybe you view these as the same thing. So this is an area that we want to explore more. And we're really interested to hear your feedback on how you can see this sibling association being valuable in use cases outside of DBT. So at this point, I'm going to cut over to Shirshanka, and he's going to share some other very cool updates on the DBT front.
Actually, Gabe, you can keep moving the slides forward
Okay.
because it's not too much. So.
Sounds good.
Cool. So now that we've kind of seen all of the amazing stuff and a lot of love in the chat, Gabe, so check it out. And Mert, to your question about can we apply the same thing to Kafka and Hive and other kinds of sibling entities, let's chat. I think we definitely feel like this might be an interesting way to combine views together and things like that. So moving forward, DBT tests. I think most of you, hopefully, who are DBT Power users are also familiar with DBT tests, but I'll give you a quick primer. You define tests right alongside. So next slide. You define tests right alongside your DBT model, but the way we were treating them are just like data sets. And so when you would ingest your DBT catalog, tests would show up in the catalog, except there would be like subtypes of tests. So you'd search for customer and all these tests would show up. And it was just a pretty big annoyance. There were also other problems moving forward. we weren't able to record any test outcomes. So we would see these test data sets hanging out and you didn't know what exactly they were doing, or if you go to the properties, you wouldn't find anything about them. In Lineage, obviously they showed up as having edges up to the underlying table. And even after you merge it, it's kind of annoying to see tests hanging off of the Lineage graph alongside data sets. So quick primer on how tests are defined. They are attached to either the model or to the column within the model. DBT comes out of the box with some default tests like uniqueness and not null and a few others. There's also additional packages that many people use, such as DBT expectations, which kind of parallels grade expectations. And you can attach tests that, test for min values and max values and things like that. You can also write tests purely as SQL. So, this is my Jaffle shop, and I went in and wrote, and this was, a logical SQL statement that just refers to the orders table and does some test. And as long as the test returns 0 rows, DBT assumes that the test succeeded. So next, this is how you run a DBT test. You just run DBT test, and it runs the test and just tells you what happened. The challenge with a lot of this, obviously, is that the output of this only stays here, and it's very hard for you to know where all of this went and keep a record of every single test you've run against your warehouse and do something actionable with it. So what we're doing right now is connect. The nice thing about DBT test is once you run it, it actually generates results in the target directory under the run results.json file. And so when we launched the DBT tests rewrite, that's the next slide, we basically said, what's the simplest way for people to consume this? First of all, when we parse the manifest in the catalog, we should be representing tests as tests and not data sets. And secondly, as long as they have run DBT test command, they should be able to point us to the output of that test command, and we should be able to then reflect those outcomes in DataHub. And so that's exactly what we've done as expected. And so that's a small screenshot of what it looks like on that merge node. But Gabe, if you click on that live demo link, it should take us to an actual data set on which tests have actually been run. And some assertions have failed and some have succeeded. This is up on demo. And as you can see, it looks exactly like what you would expect. You have the timeline view. So if you click into any of these, you should see when those evaluations were last run, whether they succeeded or failed. On some of them, you'll see that view logic node. And so if you click on it, if you scroll up a little bit, you'll be able to see the logic for the node as well. So for example, in this case, there was that SQL statement that I just showed you. You can basically see what is the SQL that backs the assertion. And I think that's pretty much it in terms of what to expect from that integration. So most of you I know run DBT either on DBT Cloud or maybe on Airflow or some other orchestrator. So the best way to integrate with the DataHub ingestion system is to produce your catalog and your manifest.json and your run results.json that comes out of the DBT test command. You can either put it in a local file system and drop it over into S3. And then in the DBT recipe, you can just point to those S3 artifacts, and this recipe will just pull it in and produce these results into DataHub. So it's a great kind of follow-on step to running your DBT model generation and your DBT tests. So you can just have like a 3-step process now: DBT model run, and then DBT tests, and then push metadata to DataHub from the artifacts you just generated. So you'll get them pretty much live and instantaneously. That's pretty much all I had. If you go back to the main slide deck and hit next, let's see if I had anything interesting to say after this. No. All right. So Aditya, over to you for the CSV ingestion support. And would love to get feedback on this and make it more useful for everyone.
Yeah, and I think one thing I want to call out here, this is an effort where we're really trying to make sure that the experience of navigating DBT entities within DataHub is very intuitive and kind of native to, basically just like what you would expect to see if you're a DBT power user. And so where we really want to start going deeper on some of these highly adopted connectors. So and really a lot of the work that Gabe did specifically to merge and kind of like surface up these entities was all based off of community feedback. And so, y'all's perspectives is just really, really informative and really helps us kind of firm up what that user experience should be. So huge shout out there.
And that
All
just
right,
reminded me that there is basically this pattern now that you can start implementing, which is you can run your DBT tests, push them to DataHub, and then you can have a circuit breaker on the other side. That's what John had demoed last time, right? About having a pipeline actually check the results of those assertions before deciding to move forward or not. And if you're doing some DBT and some great expectations, that's fine, because you can have DBT results as well as great expectation results coming into that same entity. We're going to union them all. And then your circuit breaker can basically ensure that all these assertions are passing before making further progress. So you don't have to choose between one data test tool versus another. You can actually choose the best from each tool and still get a unified API to make decisions based on data quality checks coming from everywhere. All right. Back to
Amazing.
Aditya.
All right, let's move over to Aditya. I'm going to talk through
it's the
our
wrong
new
tab.
CSV ingestion.
Hey everyone, it's Aditya. Good to see you all again. Great town hall so far. Great job, everyone. Cool. So I'm here to talk about the CSV ingestion plugin that we recently added. It's actually already available in the DataHub CLI. So why would I use the CSV ingestion plugin? So this is really great if like you want to bulk apply things like tags, terms, and owners to various data assets that you have. So if you're like, oh, I want to apply a bunch of glossary terms that are for like various PII things across like different data sets, but like, you don't want to click through each of your data sets individually on the UI, you can use the CSV ingestion plugin to, put in which data sets you want to apply this on and which terms, and it's just easy to do that via like one command. This is also really great because we can easily extend this to other aspects of the future. So right now we only support tags, terms, and owners, but descriptions is coming very soon in the next CLI release. You can imagine this is easily extendable to things like domains and like whatever aspects like we will add to DataHub in the future. This is also really great if like you already have some other mechanism, like maybe other tools, or like maybe you just manually keep track of things like, oh, on some spreadsheet, you say like, I have these owners attached to these data sets and these owners attached to these data sets. And like, you want all of that data to just be synced into your DataHub instance. This CSV ingestion plugin is really great for allowing your DataHub to be updated. Over here, you can see like a little example of what that CSV will look like. Awesome, so let's get straight into a demo. Okay. Great. Can you guys see my DataHub instance over here?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is the data set that I'm going to apply some new tags, terms, and owners to. You can see right now I don't have any owners. We're missing some tags here at the entity level, and maybe we'll want to add some new glossary terms. And one thing that I don't know if I called out is that you can apply tags, terms, and like all of these aspects, both at the data asset level, so like data sets and charts and those sorts of things, and also at the column level. So let's go a little bit into like what defining that would look like. So here is what the recipe looks like. So there's a couple of flags that you can put here. So there's the should overwrite flag that allows you to decide whether you want to either append, like any metadata that's or any aspects that's defined in the CSV, on your metadata, or whether you want to replace, like replace like new owners or something, or just append to the existing ones. You can also, depending on how your CSV is defined, put a delimiter or define a delimiter, and then array delimiter for array fields like tags, terms, and owners. Awesome. And then let's take a look at what that CSV looks like. So, okay, so right now, just for this example, I'm just doing this on one data set, sample Hive data set that I just showed you, but you can do this on as many data sets as you want, but for the purpose of this demo, I think it's a little easier so that you can just see the changes applied on one screen. So we're gonna add some owners here. I don't think there's any existing tags, and there's only one existing glossary term on the data set, so we're gonna add another one, and we're also gonna make some changes at the column level. So let's go back over here. Oh, you can see I already ran a run, but I'll just run. So also, I'm just using the existing like sample recipe and the demo data that's already available on our GitHub repo. Great. Let's run this. Awesome. You see that it produced 4 work units. Great. Cool. So now you can see that we had some new owners that were applied. Those tags and terms were added, and yeah, your data is all in sync. Great. Let me go back here. Awesome. So what's next for this plugin? So obviously, as I said, like descriptions, ownership type, domains, those are all like pretty low-hanging fruit. If you have any other, so just descriptions and ownership type, to be clear, are going to be available in the next Python release. If you have any other ideas for how you want to extend this to other aspects that you think would be useful, like please feel free to DM me on Slack, and I would love to collaborate and help you, push any contributions towards improving the plugin. Cool.
Thank you much, sir. And Aditya, if you want to take a look in chat, there's a bunch of love, also some questions. I know that maybe John's already addressed them, but great follow-up questions in there as well. And yeah, I'm super excited about this one. I think it's going to be a huge win for folks that are kind of getting their initial DataHub instance stood up and kind of doing some bulk uploading. It's really going to accelerate a lot of really great adoption. So very, very jazzed about that one. All right, we have one more session left. We are going to go into a DataHub 201 session. So for those of you, excuse me, who have maybe not seen this before, every once in a while we like to kind of do a deep dive into some of the fundamentals of DataHub, just to make sure that folks have deep understanding of how the features work, what they represent, how to interact with them, etc. So today we're going to go. We're going to take a deeper look into our business glossary. And Chris, I will hand it over to you, sir.
Cool, cool. All right, let me get this going. All right, can you see the slideshow fine?
Yes, sir, you're all good.
Cool. All right, hey everyone. So yeah, as Maggie said, today I'm going to be talking about the business glossary in DataHub. So talking about these glossaries, what they are, and how you can use them for your team's benefit. All right. Before we get more into specifics, let's tackle first things first. What even is a business glossary? A business glossary is a place where organizations can centrally define and organize assets through terms that are used by the business. The goal of the glossary is to create a single source of truth when it comes to industry, field, or company-specific terms, phrases, or acronyms. As you can imagine, there can be a lot of those. When everyone is aligned, you can leverage your business glossary on DataHub to organize data assets using the shared vocabulary. The days of misunderstanding a metric or phrase are long gone, I'm happy to say. And now you can accurately describe different assets within your organization for your business needs. Not only will your business terms be less ambiguous when describing your data, but by assigning terms to different assets, you're also grouping them together for discoverability. You can easily see all the different assets assigned to a term by just checking out the terms page and seeing all of its related entities. I'll go more into details about this and other specific use cases as well in a little bit. But now that I've hopefully sold you on the importance of a business glossary, let's go into some specifics around how to create a glossary on DataHub and get it working for you and your needs. So yeah, creating your glossary. There are two ways that you can create a business glossary in DataHub today. First, ingest your glossary via YAML file with your terms and definitions, or you can create it via the UI. So YAML-based ingestion for your glossary looks like this snippet here. You define the structure and fields of your glossary and then ingest using the DataHub command line tool. Ingesting via YAML file has the benefit of checking in code and tracking your changes through to your glossary through version control like GitHub. However, it may be less accessible for non-technical users, as you can imagine. All right, and then creating through the UI. This involves going to your glossary in DataHub. And from here, you can create terms and term groups to organize terms under. Simply click the menu and open a modal to create, as you can see in some of the screenshots here. In contrast to creating your glossary via YAML, creating through the UI may be more accessible for non-technical users, but doesn't give you the benefit of tracking changes through version control. But it is a lot easier to make small changes, ad hoc changes, all that sort of stuff. All right, so now that you've actually gone through the work of creating your well thought out business glossary, let's talk about adding your terms to different data entities. So there are several different ways you can go about accomplishing this, including through the UI on an entities page, using the new CSV feature that was just demoed by Aditya. Thank you for that, Aditya, great demo. And using transformers. So first, adding through the UI, adding glossary terms to entities through the UI is as simple as finding the entity you care about. You got to go to its page and then just click the add term button. As you can see, I've circled in green. In the modal that pops up, you can then navigate through your glossary and select the term you want, which is easier now than ever it was before. Another option that I mentioned before is adding terms to entities with your new CSV ingestion feature. This allows you to set multiple terms, do more bulk actions just by setting the entities and providing earns. Aditya just went over this, so I'm just going to kind of move on by and not waste your time. And then finally, you can use transformers within your ingestion recipe to also add terms when ingesting your data. There's a few different options that we provide out of the box here. So first, you can add terms to all the data sets you're ingesting, like transformer number 1. Or you can specify dataset name patterns to target only specific datasets that you want, like transformer 2. Or you can specify specific schema fields that you want to add terms to as well, like transformer 3. Finally, you can always write custom transformers to add glossary terms however you'd like, but these are the 3 that we provide right here. All of this is well documented on our docs site. I would definitely check it out. If you guys have any further questions, I put the link here, but also ask questions in Slack. Cool. Now that your glossary is all put together and data assets are tagged with terms, let's talk about a couple different use cases for the business glossary in DataHub. For our first use case, imagine you're at an organization that has different KPIs that are important to different areas of the business. Previously, a KPI was just a concept that you were supposed to just kind of know, and you knew it was relevant to your data and your organization, but you weren't really sure where or how. Now, with DataHub's business glossary, you can actually have a material presence of what was previously just a concept. Not only is it a real entity that you can reference, it's actually with your data alongside it, not just in Notion or Google Docs or somewhere else out there in the ether. With this comes the ability to easily see all assets relevant for this KPI, all on the same platform. Curious about how your company calculates return rate? First, you can look at the agreed upon definition of the term itself, like in screenshot 1 here. Then you can see all the data sets and charts used in calculating or graphing this KPI in the related entities tab, all on the same page. Now that's what I call real visibility into a concept that's so important for a business and measuring its own goals. All right, next. For another maybe more specific example, let's think about a situation where you have sensitive data flowing through your system. For this scenario, I'm actually going to do a little demo for you guys to show a couple new features as well. So let me move this thing. Okay, cool. So, you know you collect the address of some of your users and you're curious about this. You know you have an address glossary term and you want to know more. So you can navigate to your glossary and find this address term that you care about to do a little bit of investigation. I know address is under personal information. You could have always looked here and found it. So now we're at our address page. This term page is actually going to tell you exactly what an address is. So at least you know what you're talking about street addresses here and not something like an IP address. So we're reducing ambiguity here already. From here, you can also see the source of the definition if you wanted to go check that out. That's a new feature that we added back that was previously lost. And then you can also check out the related entities tab and see all of the different entities that have been tagged with this term. Here, we just have a couple customers, raw customers. But when thinking more about this term, you realize that address is definitely sensitive information and you should be guarding it with care. But you also know that you have another glossary term, sensitive, that could be of help here. So I'm going to go to this related entities tab. And now, for the first time, you can actually control different contains and inherits relationships through the UI by adding different terms to link them. So in this situation, I know that address is sensitive, and I'm going to say that I want to add an inherits relationship between this address and say that it inherits from something that I know, another term that I know we have, sensitive. Let's add it. And boom, there we go. It is now inheriting from sensitive. But not only this, you can actually go to the sensitive term page and check out its related entities tab. And here you can check out not only all the entities that are tagged with sensitive, but also all the entities that are tagged with the terms that directly inherit from this sensitive term. As you can see, address we just added as inherits from sensitive. So now all the address entities also show up in related entities for sensitive. Email is another one that had been previously added as inheriting from sensitive. So now everything is all in one place and you can have a much better understanding of what your data is, how it all interacts and how it relates to different information types and different classifications within your system. And actually that is it for me, folks. Thanks for listening. As per usual, if you have any questions, please reach out on Slack. I'll pass it back to Maggie.
Thank you, Chris. Some really great questions in chat. I was just typing one out, but since I'm off mute now, I will just respond vocally. So Pam and Atul had both asked around kind of like voting on definitions. We don't have that on the immediate roadmap for business glossaries in general. That being said, I will plug the collaboration survey that's coming out today. Because I think there's just some broader themes to collaboration around how do you start to either like upvote or kind of signal confidence in something and kind of share that knowledge. So please keep an eye on your Slack. It'll be coming out as a Poly. It's from the Poly app. That'll be coming out this afternoon. Other than that, folks, this is the first time in recent memory that we have ended on the nose, on time. I'm very pleased with that. Thank you all so much for your time and your attention, your enthusiasm. We appreciate you so very much. If you have any other questions, we can stick around for a few minutes, but otherwise we will see you on the internet, everybody.